All right, we are now moving into our module about program evaluation. And just to recap, so as part of your overall larger final project, it's going to be kind of developed in a two-part way, right? So the first part is going to be development of the needs assessment or the needs statement. And then the second part is going to be the actual program evaluation part of it. And so again, I'm going to try to make some references to connect this to the grant work that we've been doing, that Dr. Glenn and I have been doing, and our team. I think I failed to mention that there's a whole team of people behind us in the last lecture, but there's certainly a team of individuals working on this grant. But I'll hopefully be able to connect some of my real world experience and what's actually going on with the grant right now to what that means in terms of program evaluation for this module. So when we have established that a need is there within a community, right, within a counseling agency, whatever it might be, when there has been a need established, when we've involved stakeholders, when we've gotten feedback, when we've gotten some money, ideally, to develop a program, then it comes time to actually implement the program. And so that's where it becomes a little bit more fun, in my opinion. But at the same time, throughout this process, there is a need, sometimes designated by whoever funded the program, more often than not just from higher ups, people that make a lot more money than the people implementing the program, and admins within an organization or an agency or a hospital setting or whatever it might be, that want to know how well it's working and where do you stand in the development of said counseling program. So counseling program evaluation in general, we can think of it kind of on a micro level of the fact that when you're working and you're practicing in a counseling setting, you're always constantly kind of evaluating the work that you're doing with clients. You're making sure that you're practicing effectively and ethically and asking for feedback. If we, look at it from a education standpoint, from an academic standpoint, programs like our program, like the Clinical Mental Health Rehab Counseling Program, is constantly doing program evaluation, and we have to report all of those items to KCREP to make sure that we are effectively providing counselor education to you all, to our students, and we are measuring our ability to do that by providing assessments and by grading you on certain things and by seeing that you're improving from one semester to the next. And so we do all of that, and that's where you see those assessments like in Tavera that you will see, and you'll see more of those in Tavera as you get into internship and practicum and internship. So counseling programs are constantly doing program evaluation as required by KCREP, if not their universities as well. You can work as a program evaluator. I mean, that could be a side hustle for you if you feel like it down the road. If stats and numbers and this type of thing is your thing, certainly that's an area of expertise that's needed. So a lot of counseling programs will find that they do like a needs assessment and they're lacking in one area and they are not up to standards with KCREP, or maybe they've been put on like a plan for improvement with KCREP, which nobody ever wants to be put on like probation with KCREP. But so maybe they're going to bring in a consultant that's going to be doing some program evaluation, a third party, providing a different perspective and providing recommendations after analysis has been done. So actually within our new merged department, within the Counseling and Learning Sciences department, there are a number of people on the learning sciences side that actually have a good amount of expertise in program evaluation. It's kind of one of their the things that those faculty members have been doing. So there's a lot of room for program evaluation across the counseling profession in general. But then of course, on a more macro level, it's, program evaluation of larger programs. If we're looking at how the Rehabilitation Service Administration, RSA, looks at every single state voc rehab program out there annually and reports information to the general public, how SAMHSA does the same thing, how NIDLR does the same thing. So you have all of these statistical entities, these program evaluation entities that are working on a national scale and checking in on people like myself, Dr. Glenn, and our lovely team of within our RSA grant that are making sure that we're doing what we said that we were going to do, what we promised to be doing in our proposal and our needs assessment. So, program evaluation functions is there for a number of reasons. One, to provide accountability, right? To make sure that we are providing the services that we said we were going to provide, to show our stakeholders that what we're doing is making a difference one way or the other, to show effectiveness, ideally, of the program that we're evaluating. And to a degree, and I don't want to say it would be ineffective, if our program is not effective, then being able to, again, critically evaluate that through our data and make recommendations for what things could be changed at a later point if the program was going to be implemented again. So let's think about, some of the projects that you guys are proposing and how program evaluation fits into that, right? So some of you are proposing like development of, a counseling intervention for a specific population of individuals. So the program evaluation piece of it is going to start like way before people even get the intervention, right? Because you're going to be developing the program itself. You're going to be developing assessments or figuring out what assessments to be using with that population. Then you're going to be implementing the counseling program, and throughout the implementation process, you're going to be doing different types of evaluation, formative evaluation being kind of as you go along. So let's say you have a program that's going to last 3 months, and you do an evaluation at the end of the first month, evaluation at the end of the second, evaluation at the end of the third, and then you do a summative evaluation of the whole program after you're done with everything to figure out the overall effectiveness of the program. So there are different benchmarks where we are going into the programs and saying, again, being critical. Is this working as we expected? Is it that we need to make improvements along the way? And that's one of those areas where program evaluation and research, counseling research, really differ, right? Because within a research approach, we're usually picking different interventions. We're setting our dependent and independent variables if that's something that we're doing, and we are using a specific methodology to evaluate whether or not our hypothesis holds at the end of the day, right? And so you're not necessarily making any modifications as you go along within counseling research. Within program evaluation, you may be making some adjustments or modifications as you go along because you're doing these evaluations as you implement programs at different stages. Trying to go through the little slides here that I have. The textbook puts out a nice little outline of what program evaluation looks like. Again, it's in the back of my head to go ahead and give you guys the outline for the final paper, because what I have done is provided kind of a similar structure for you to follow for your actual paper in terms of the program evaluation. But also know that the activities that I'm having you do, like the blog and like the discussion for this week, all of that can be easily just kind of implemented into your final paper, right? Taking my feedback into account. So there are these, different models of program evaluation. Like I said, I think in last week's lecture, I do truly feel like we could have a dedicated course on program evaluation, and there are dedicated textbooks on program evaluation and degree programs that people enter into. But in terms of reporting, so let's, kind of taking it through the process, let's say you have done some evaluation, some formative evaluation, you're getting the numbers from that, right? You've done some assessments, you're wanting to figure out if the counseling program that you've implemented is actually working or if it isn't working. You want to get some feedback on your program, right? So then you're doing the data analysis piece of this, and that's where there is some overlap between program evaluation and research, in that you will have set some objectives for your program. You would have asked some questions, some research questions, right, beforehand. And then you're going to be doing actual analysis to get to the presenting results. And then after you do that, then you're going to be discussing those findings and again, evaluating what changes could be made, what limitations were there, any biases that came through as you were going through the program. So all that comes out in the reporting process. Now, just as statisticians aren't sitting there and crunching numbers and, developing carpal tunnel because they're writing down mathematical equations every day, all day, program evaluators are using software to run numbers. So there are program evaluation, like content management systems that will track all this information and export it into lovely, beautiful little graphs for people. So, it's not that if you are interested in this type of career track, or again, side hustle, if you want to call it that, that you would have to be a mathematical whiz. You could just go and purchase program evaluation software application, and that would take care of it for you. So important things to talk about in terms of the logic model and objectives, okay? So logic models, generally speaking, are new to students, and they can be a little bit difficult to wrap your head around. So I provided some examples of what a logic model might look like in PowerPoint within the module itself. And so for this week's discussion, what you're going to be doing, again, is using all that needs, the needs assessment to inform how your program, how your counseling intervention program might actually look. And a logic model is literally a graphic representation of the program. And a lot of times you're going to start with the end of the logic model. You're going to start with, what your goal is. What do you hope the outcome is? And then you're going to fill in some blanks along the way. And logic models can take a lot of different shapes. There's not one right way to draw up a logic model. You'll find lots of different examples of that if you just Google it, and you would find more than I provided to you. But you might be working backwards in terms of your development of your logic model. You want to really outline who the personnel are, who are your stakeholders, who's going to be implementing the program. And you want to be very specific with these things too. So again, this is all me providing some suggestions for you as you develop your discussion, and I'll provide even more feedback for you so that you're doing the best that you can be doing when it comes to your final paper. So more often than not, one of the things that I'm going to tell you is that you're not being specific enough. So you want to be specific, right? You want to outline the activities that are actually going to take place within this program that you're implementing, that you're actually going to be putting into place. What are those activities? How many counseling sessions are your participants going to be receiving that relate to whatever the program is? What is the process, and then what are the objectives? Objective statements are very difficult for anybody to develop. I think I complained about them in at least one past lecture, if not all of them. So again, I provided a good amount of resources on developing objective statements as well. What I'm looking for with the program evaluation are the outcome objectives. Specific, more specific than less specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be using adjectives appropriately. They cannot just be broad, as in an objective of this program is that my clients will be less depressed. Fantastic. I'm sure you do want your clients to be less depressed. What in the world does that mean? And a clear-cut objective would be at the end of the 3-month program, which will implement DBT interventions to a population of 15 women. I will see improvement in Beck depression inventory scores. That is like literally on the fly, so hopefully that made sense. But so with the objective statements that you're going to be developing, and I only need one this week, I only need one, but it needs to be more specific than not. It needs to be more outcome oriented than process oriented. And use the resources that I've given you, the SMART guidelines, the ABCD model for writing objectives, and take my feedback to heart, because development of the logic model and development of the objective statements are really a key part of your final project. The logic model also does include a little bit of a narrative explaining what the heck you mean by that graphic. That's necessary. We never provide a graphic in any kind of written documentation without explaining it somewhere else in a paper, right? Because a graphic is a graphic, it's bullet points. You're not writing me a paragraph and shoving it into a little box in like 9.5 font, right? So give me basic information in the model itself, an actual graphic, and then you explain it a little bit in the actual narrative. The narrative is not the objectives. Those are two different things. So a narrative is a narrative, the objectives are the objectives. Keep those two items separate. So hopefully I haven't overwhelmed you all more than you might already be feeling at midterm. If you have questions, please again feel free to ask me as always. And I'm happy to be available during office hours, outside of office hours, if you're really getting stuck on this and where your idea is flowing. But really the logic model and the objectives are meant to help guide you to what you eventually want to see with your program. So have fun with it as much as you can, and I will check back in on everybody in the discussion board.